is Escobar, and he swings and hits it into left center. It is dropped. Here comes Escobar. 1-0 Kansas City. Gordon in the air to center. Back at the wall. This game is tied. That's up the middle. Base hit. Rios scores. Here comes Escobar. Broken back. Fly ball. Right field. How about Cueto? Royals up 2-0. Royals have fought back the entire postseason. One. That's in the air to left. Back. Conforto. It's over his head. Up against the wall. One run scores in the time run the second Hosmer. Broken
Welcome back to Midweek Live. Why do I sound so excited? It's because I'm trying to keep myself from crying. Because we should have had almost 2 months of baseball by now. We have had no baseball. Sarah and I are huge baseball fans, and so we have been struggling through this time. We have been trying to guess or place bets, I guess, on when baseball will be coming back. Don't bet, kids. But we got some very good news today that it might be coming back soon. And so today's Midweek Live is a baseball-themed episode. And so we are very excited about it.
Very excited. I didn't sleep last night. I was too excited for tonight.
So we have our baseball jerseys on. We have baseball-themed games for you today. We have a baseball-themed 7th inning stretch coming up a little bit later. And so we're so excited for all the stuff that we are going to be doing today. I, as you can see, am a big Royals fan. I was born and raised here in Kansas City. Sarah is a Red Sox fan.
I am.
How did you become a Red Sox fan?
My dad, he was raised in Maine and Massachusetts, and so we are Red Sox fans. If you wanted to sleep inside the house at night, you rooted for the Red Sox.
Seems like a fair trade.
And there was a 10 in the backyard.
There you go. If you were going to live far away from your baseball team, at least it's a baseball team that has been pretty successful, especially in the past 20 years or so. So good for the Red Sox, good for the Royals. We're fun too, and we're going to have some fun tonight. So it wouldn't be Midweek Live without our weekly raffle. So Sarah, tell us about the raffle.
All right, tonight's raffle is going to be Uber Eats. Yes. We're bringing it back. So what you need to do is go !raffle and then give us your first and last name. We'll put you in the raffle and you get to see if you win Uber Eats or not.
Have you had Panda Express 3 times this week like you did last time?
No, I got help.
Oh,
for
good.
my addiction.
Very good. Very good. We have some fun baseball eats later, and so we'll
Yeah.
be excited to share those with you guys. But first, we're going to play a game. You want to play a game?
Yes, always.
Okay.
Always a game.
This is a game called Top Plays
Or not top play.
or Not Top Plays. Basically, some of your favorite student ministry folks went out to a softball field this past Saturday, and we decided to try our baseball skills. And we recorded all of it, and we grabbed some plays, and we want you to decide if this is a top play or a not top play. So when you see the video clip, there's going to be a freeze frame, and during that time, enter in the comments, top play or not top play. So here we go. I'm pitching. Cam's up to bat. You guys know that he's not going to make contact with this because I'm pitching, but if you think this is a top play, put it in the chat. If you think it's a not top play, put it in the chat. So what do you think, Sarah? Top play or not top play?
You know, top play.
You would be right. He made contact. He did a big
at
old
the
bat flip. Yep.
Yeah.
That was a top
Extra points.
play.
And,
Wow.
And, yeah.
Very fun. What's going on here, Sarah?
Oh. Sorry. A routine.
Well, that was very exciting. So
It's TikTok inspired.
after that, I can't help but think that this is a top play. Students, put it in the chat. Top play or not top play? I'm very anxious to see what happens here.
Same.
Put it in the chat. Here it comes. Oh! And she carries the bat with her over to first base. Very fun.
Did.
So Tyler and Cam are in the outfield now. It looks like we have a fly ball. One of them has to make the play. Is it a top play? Is it a not top play? We're going to tell you for who gets the most correct guesses what the prize is later, but put your answer in the chat. What do you think, Sarah?
Top play.
He just kind of tackled him. So we're going to call that a not top play. So very fun. Oh, here's Travis. Ground ball coming at him. He's got perfect form.
I know, he really does.
So I have to think this is a top play here. But I guess we're going to see. He had his kid out there with him, and so he wanted to do a good job.
For Baby Jude.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh.
We hope Baby Jude was not watching that.
Just missed it.
So close.
Here's Tyler in the outfield. Tyler is crazy athletic,
Yeah.
right? So what do we think is going to happen here?
He's going to catch it.
Put it in the
For
chat,
sure.
students. Top play, not top play. He's got a good angle on it, so I'm thinking that this will end up pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh.
He made the
perfect.
catch. That's a top play, and he throws it back in perfectly. Okay, what do we have here? This looks fun. Nothing's really happening. Oh, there's me. Okay, top play for sure. If I'm involved, it is for sure a top play. What do you think?
I'm going to say not top play.
Awesome. This has been so fun to host with you this week. All right. Well, I guess we're about to find out. It looks like I'm chasing a fly ball. Oh, there you are.
it from me. You
Of
stole
course.
it.
We have to be social distancing right now. Unfortunately, that is a not top play. Oh, okay. This looks fun. You're up to bat. Tell me what's going through your brain here.
I just really want to hit that ball. I want a home run.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're about to see what's going to happen. I'm umpiring, so hopefully I judge this well.
Home run.
Ooh, rang her up. Oh, I can't believe you kicked dirt on me in your Allbirds. Well, you got ejected, so
I did.
not top play.
Not my fault you made a wrong call.
Yeah. Here's Tyler. This is our last one, students. So put in the chat, top play, not top play. He's getting ready to bat. I bet he hits a home run, right?
I would bet money on that. But we don't bet money.
Right.
But
that's
if
right.
I did, I would.
We always bet on Tyler. Oh,
Oh,
dang. The Astros cheating scandal. Well, that was a top play, though. Look at him rounding the bases. Yeah, so that was fun. We had a lot of fun on Saturday. We're going to be looking in the chat to see who guessed correctly the most. Top plays or not top plays. What do we win this week?
You guys win Sonic and Swag.
Y'all know what this is. We've done these T-shirts a few weeks now.
They're awesome.
Yeah, without a doubt. And so yeah, we dropped off some Sonic and some swag this past week. So you might win again. Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll see. But But we've had fun on the baseball theme, and again, hopefully baseball will be back very soon. Nonetheless, this has been an interesting time. What's something that God has taught you during quarantine?
Honestly, it's kind of revealed a lot of selfishness.
Yeah.
Just like, and I get so focused on things that I had planned and getting disappointed because what I had planned didn't work out. And so I just realized how selfish I can be with my time.
I think for me, honestly, and baseball really comes into this, but I learned about a lot of things that I sometimes replace my time with God with, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whether it's baseball or even hanging out with friends, I do a lot of things, and sometimes I let my quiet time with the Lord fall down the list of priorities because I'm so busy. And so I think the Lord has taught me that when all else is stripped away, that He is always there. And at the end of the day, He is going to be more important than any of the other stuff. And so students, you may have a story like that as well. We hope you're reflecting on that. We're praying for you in that. We have our teaching time coming up. Who we got tonight? Who's teaching?
Tonight we have Tyler Jordan.
Wow. Very good. Still in 1 John. Who's teaching next week?
I'm teaching next week.
So excited. That'll be fun. We've really enjoyed this 1 John series with you. Just as a reminder, on Instagram, Devos are being posted so that you can be reading along in 1 John with us. And we have some voice recording devotionals in the story with us, with some of your small group and life group leaders. And so be sure that you're checking our Instagram stories for the 1 John Devos. Ready to turn it over to Tyler?
I am. Take it away, Tyler.
Hey students, welcome to week 3 of our series in the book of 1 John. This is it's such a good book. It's been such a good study so far. We've learned a lot in the first couple weeks, and tonight we're going to be in 1 John chapter 3. We get right to the middle of the book, right to the kind of the climax of John's message for us, and so I'm excited to jump in. A lot of times when I read Scripture, and I'm sure this is true for some of you, when you've read Scripture before, sometimes it's hard to understand exactly what we're supposed to do with what we read. The application is not always easy to understand. Well, I have good news. That will not be the case tonight. John will be very clear with us tonight on what is expected of us if we truly are believers. If we claim to be Christians, we're going to know the action steps from tonight. Here's my question for you. Have you ever ignored instructions because you already know what to do? Have you ever been in a situation where there's some instructions laid out for you and you're like, you know what, I don't need it. I know what I'm doing. I don't need the rule book. I don't need the step-by-step instructions. See, for me, it depends on the circumstance. It depends on what I'm doing. If I get a new phone, for example, I don't really need the instruction book to figure out how to set up a new iPhone. I don't even know if they come with instructions anymore because I don't look for it. I kind of enjoy just getting it set up and learning how it works as I use it. But if I'm doing something else, if I'm building something, for example, I like to have instructions. I like to make sure that I have all my pieces that I need before I start. I like to know what the process is. That way I don't make a mistake because I'm not quite as confident in that. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been given instruction by somebody and you're like, you know what, I know what I'm doing, so I don't need it. It's amazing how when we know something, when we know the truth, when we know how something works, our confidence rises. But it's the opposite of that is true as well. If you're not as confident in something, if you don't know as much about what you're doing, your confidence is not quite as strong. I hope you enjoyed those clips we just watched with our top plays and not top plays with our baseball themed Midweek Live tonight. I think my favorite one was when Jake was behind home plate and he popped out and started banging on the trash can. And then the guy who was batting, who was a good-looking guy, and man, he hit that ball a long way. I don't know if you know that or not, but man, he killed that ball. I like that clip because it references, if you don't know what that's referencing, basically a story came out at the end of last year that the Houston Astros, 2 years ago in 2017, they won the World Series, but actually we found out that they were cheating the year that they won it. And if you're an Astros fan out there, I'm so sorry, but it's true. But here's what they would do. They had somebody set up with a camera in center field, and the cameraman would watch the opposing team's catcher. and the catcher would send signs to the pitcher. And so that cameraman would then relay information to the dugout, telling them what pitch was coming next. And so somebody in the dugout had some sort of cadence they would play on a trash can, signaling to their batter what pitch was coming next. It's amazing when you're playing baseball, if you've never played before, if you know what pitch is coming, you have a huge advantage. If you don't know, well, that's why you see a lot of players swing and miss and strike out. But it's amazing how when you know what's coming next, you can swing confidently. Here's another example. Let's say you're in math class. You're trying to do a math problem, and you're just trying to do this math problem without the proper tools. You're just doing your best. You kind of know how it's done, but let's say you don't have your calculator with you. You may not be as confident that you got the right answer. But if you have your calculator, you can check your work, you can punch in the formula and hit that equal sign. All of a sudden, you know if you have the right answer or not. You can be confident in what you know. Let's say you need to measure something. You have a space in your room where you're trying to put a new piece of furniture. If you just eyeball it and you're like, I think it's about this wide, so this thing should probably fit, you're not going to be very confident that you're right. But if you have the right tools, if you have a measuring tape or a ruler, right, all of a sudden you can know exactly if you have the right amount of space or not. And so my question is for us, as we get into 1 John tonight, for those of us that claim to be believers, how do we know that we are following Jesus the right way? How do we know, and this is the big question really, how do we know that we are really following Jesus? How do we know if we're doing it the right way? Well, we have a tool here tonight. We have a measurement that's going to tell us if we are right or not. So, as we start reading, here's what I want us to do, okay? We're going to be in, like I said, 1 John 3, starting in verse 11. I'm going to read just one verse for now to get us started, okay? So 1 John 3, starting in verse 11, here's what John says to us. For this is the message that you have heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. He said, this is not new information. I'm going to tell you something that you've heard for a long, long time. This is not new to you. And he says, we should love one another. He says the message you've heard from the beginning. So what's he talking about? Well, in the Old Testament, it says in the Old Testament law that you should love your neighbor as yourself. In fact, when Jesus was asked about this, he was asked, what's the most important law? And he says, well, love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. So he's saying, hey guys, from the beginning, this has been the most important thing. See, in Christianity, a lot of times we're tempted to come up with new things, come up with things that are fresh. And it's like sometimes, man, we just got to stick to what Jesus has said. This is what matters the most. If you were in church with us this last Sunday online, I talked about a verse in Galatians 5:6 that I love. It says this, Paul says, the only thing that counts, the only thing that really matters is your faith expressing itself through love. And so John is going to make the same point here. He says, hey, this is the message from the beginning, that we should love one another. See, as Christians, you and I are obligated. We are obligated to love. It's not just a recommendation. It's not just a suggestion. It's not just a good idea. It is something we are required to do. It's a privilege. We are privileged to be able to show the love of Jesus to other people. But see, a lot of Christians don't see it as an obligation sometimes. Let me explain it to you this way. So think about your car if you drive. If you have your own car, if not, maybe you use your parents' car. Or if you don't drive yet, just think about your parents' vehicle. You see, when you go to buy a car, let's say you're buying a brand new car, okay? When you go buy a brand new car, you have some options. Maybe you figure out exactly what kind of car you want, but that's not the end of the search. Then you have to decide what level of this car do I want. See, every vehicle comes in a base default model. It means that it's the model that it's set up to function, so it gets you from point A to point B. It may have some extra features on it like power seats or, Bluetooth audio, but it's not going to have all the bells and whistles that some other cars have. It just has the base standard, the obligated features. But then if you want to pay more money, you can get more features added on to your base model. Maybe you want the sunroof. You want the upgraded surround sound system. You want a bigger engine, whatever it might be. You can add to the things that come on the base model. John wants us to know tonight that loving each other, Loving your neighbor as yourself is not an added on feature if you're just a better Christian. Loving other people, loving your neighbor as yourself is the base model. It's like saying, hey, I'm going to go buy a car, but you know what? I don't want the wheels on it. Then why are you getting a car? It is an obligation. It is a standard of following Jesus, is that we love one another. So here's a question I want you to think about before we take a short break. Simply this. It should be an easy question to answer. It should get your mind turning before we come back to our next section, and that's this. Consider the people that God has placed in your life, the people that you spend a lot of time with, the people that are closest to you. I'm not asking you to list everybody you know, just the people that are closest to you, your family, your friends, the people you spend a lot of time with, even if you don't really like them a whole lot. Who are the people that you spend the most time with? Is your love for them characterized by caution, like it's hard for you to love them so you don't? Or do you look at them and say, hey, as a believer, because of the way Jesus has loved me, I know I'm obligated to love them. If that's a foreign idea to you, if that's a new idea to you, then you have something to learn from 1 John chapter 3 tonight. If that's not a new idea for you, I want you to kind of check yourself and answer the question of, how am I doing with that? Am I really loving people, even if they are unlovable a lot of times? Again, as believers, we don't get to decide if someone is worthy of the love of Jesus or not. We're obligated. We're privileged to love them anyway. So I'm going to leave you to think about that for just a second. We're going to take a break and get a quick snack. I'll see you in just a minute.
This is the 7th inning stretch. Welcome back to Midweek Live. If you know anything about baseball, for our baseball-themed week, you know that the 7th inning stretch is a really fun part of the game. Usually there will be someone who comes out and sings God Bless America and Take Me Out to the Ball Game. And so Sarah is going to do that for us now. Take it away.
What?
Just kidding. But what is fun at ballparks and a fun time to go and get this at a baseball game are hot dogs. So we have hot dogs. As a matter of fact, this is Ballpark Foods with Jake and Sarah. It's our own cooking show. It's going to start with us, and then we're going to bring in a couple of guests, very special guests. Who do you think the guests are?
I was hoping for JD Martinez.
JD Martinez and Salvador Perez are the people that we tried to get. We could not get them. So we're going to have Tyler and Travis join us here in a little bit. So a very important debate about hot dogs, and for those guys, bratwursts, are toppings. What do you put on your hot dog? So students in the chat, go ahead and tell us your toppings of choice. Whoever comes up with the most creative topping for your hot dog, you are going to win a replica World Series trophy, which is pretty cool. So go ahead and start putting your toppings in the chat. Sarah, what are you topping your hot dog with today?
I'm going to keep it real simple and just go with some mustard.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, you would not win the trophy, but
I know.
mustard is delicious and a very good topping. So yeah, definitely a very important part. If we were at the ballpark, I would go straight for this sauerkraut right here. It is a classic, all-American, no, all-German, yes, ballpark topping. Because did you know that German immigrants were the first people to sell hot dogs at baseball stadiums? Did you know that?
With their sauerkraut?
And their beer. We like sauerkraut. We don't like beer. But the first time a hot dog was served was right in our neighboring city over in St. Louis. So thanks, German immigrants, for sauerkraut and hot dogs. So we appreciate it. So what's that?
I don't think this is open. Is there like a... Oh.
Oh, yeah, that happens sometimes. So but here's the thing. If I opened this package of sauerkraut, this office would smell like sauerkraut forever. So, and when I say office, I mean studio set. So, there goes the sauerkraut. We're not going to use it today. But what I am going to use is some relish. Sarah, do you like relish?
Heck no.
What's wrong with relish?
It's made of pickles.
I know Tyler likes relish. If you guys want to know what to get for Tyler for his birthday next April, big old jar of pickles. In fact, go to Costco and get like the biggest production jar of pickles they have. We're going to get some mustard on there now, too. So, here we go. These are our ballpark hot dogs. So, sponsored by Frank's Sauerkraut. All right, students. So, you are putting your hot dog toppings in now. Hopefully, it's fun. Hopefully, it's really good. We're going to bring in our first guest. Travis is going to tell us what he puts on his bratwurst, which is also a German food. This episode of Midweek Live is brought to you by Germany. Thanks, Germany. Okay, what are you putting on your brat, Travis?
I love putting mustard on my bratwurst.
Okay.
Yes.
And if I'm
I put
being
mustard on mine too.
You also put pickles.
yeah,
so good.
just a good bit of mustard. That tangy.
You guys are
It's
that's
so good.
it?
It's so
You
good.
guys are
But
so
Oh my gosh, I'm not
boring.
alone. Oh,
then-
Travis.
I add
Oh, no.
typically sautéed or grilled onions, but we'll have to go without because we just got the regular onions. So I'm gonna go with onions to make my breath smell really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then really, to make it real nice, I like putting shredded cheese on there. But I don't really know if that's available at the ballpark, but it is at home.
You can
and
find it
that's-
somewhere.
That's when I'll eat bratwurst. So
If we watch baseball games this year, it's going to be at home. So,
Yeah. You can put whatever you
there you
want.
go.
yeah,
So,
that's why most creative toppings wins. So,
so
there you go.
mustard, onion, preferably grilled, and cheese.
Okay.
So good, so good.
Where's your Dr. Pepper?
Oh, that's really what
I can see it right now. Yeah. Well,
It's right over there. I'm gonna go get it,
okay.
and then
While
you
you're
can bring
gone,
on your other
we're going to
guest.
bring on our final guest, Salvador Perez. Oh, wait, no, he couldn't make it. Tyler. It's Tyler. Hey, Tyler. So Tyler has a brat as well. Tyler, what are you putting on your brat?
Do you have a brat? Oh my.
There you go. That's more like it.
For my brat, I brought it for my brat. I'm gonna put a hot dog on my brat.
Okay.
I call this the hot dog abragawurst.
I like that.
And on my hot bragadogawurst, I'm gonna go. I love ketchup, but I'm gonna go with the barbecue sauce. I
Wow.
put barbecue sauce on a lot of things. Like when I make like a turkey and cheese sandwich, I put barbecue sauce on that.
Very
So
good.
I'm all about it.
You can get Sweet Baby Ray's at the ballpark too, by the way, next year.
Sure can.
So be looking forward to that when
Put
I can
that
have
on your tachos.
Sweet. Yeah. That's it, huh?
Hot braga. Oh yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Nothing else. Just the meat and the barbecue sauce.
All right. Let's watch him eat this. Respect.
Attractive.
Wow.
I'm already married. I don't care.
There you go. That's
That's good stuff, folks.
all right. Thanks, Tyler, for coming by.
Go get sick.
Okay. Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
So, Travis is coming back. Okay,
Yeah,
welcome back, Travis.
I forgot that in order to really wrap things up, it's got to be with Dr. Pepper.
Okay.
Cold out of the fridge or out of ice, and then in a nice
In the
sleeve
koozie.
like this in the koozie.
Yeah.
So that brings it all together.
All right. Sounds good.
There we go. And then sanitize.
Yeah, and then sanitize your hands afterwards after you eat. It's very important. Well, that was the 7th inning stretch. Once again, for an encore presentation, here's Sarah with God Bless America.
God bless America.
Back to you, Tyler.
All right, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that little break. You're probably hungry now, and so go get yourself a hot dog, get yourself something else to eat. But what I want to do is jump in with you to the rest of this passage in 1 John 3. Before we do that, here's a little bit of context about what's going on, right? It's important when we study the Bible to know who's writing, who are they writing to, and what's going on when they're writing. Okay, so we know this is the Apostle John. He wrote the Gospel of John, and now he's writing these 3 letters to his church, to the people that believe under his leadership. He's writing at a time where there are a lot of false teachers that are present. There are people that are teaching things that John says are not true, but they're claiming that they are true about God and about Jesus. And so he's trying to help us people understand what is true. Think about it this way. Think about the illustration I used earlier. If you're trying to measure something and you have a ruler, like it'd be like someone said, hey, here's a ruler. It's a different length than the one you're used to, but this is actually the right one. These people are like, which one do I trust? How do I know which one is the real one, is the correct one? And so that's kind of what John is dealing with as he is teaching, as he is writing these words. So let's pick up in verse 12, 1 John chapter 3, verse 12. And let's read a few verses here. It says this: "We should not be like Cain, who was of the evil one and murdered his brother." Why did he murder him? Because his own deeds were evil and his brothers were righteous. Do not be surprised, brothers, that the world hates you. We know that we have passed out of death into life because we love the brothers. Whoever does not love abides in death. Everyone who hates his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him. Now, if you're like, why is he talking about murder and hate and all this stuff? This is heavy stuff. But we're going to learn really what he's trying to say to us here in just a moment. So first thing he does is he references a story of Cain and Abel, right? So in verse 11, he said, this is the message that you should love one another. We should not be like Cain, who is of the evil one and murdered his brother, right? So if you remember last week, Travis talked about the difference between light and dark. A very, very clear, very easy to understand illustration. We all know what it means to be in a room that is light and in a room that is dark. They are the opposites. You cannot have both at the same time. One always cancels out the other. There's no in between. It's either light or it is dark. It's the same. That's the same attitude John has when he talks about this here tonight. He's talking about love versus hate. Love is equal to light. Hate is equal to dark, and they are just as opposite as light and dark. You cannot be a person that is somewhere in the middle. Either you have love or you have hate. Again, there's no room for a gray area there in the middle. So he's going to use the story of Cain and Abel. If you know the story of Cain and Abel, this happens way back at the beginning of the Bible in Genesis. Cain and Abel were the sons of Adam and Eve. And the story goes like this. They both bring a sacrifice to God to worship. This is a common thing in the Old Testament. And so Abel brings a lamb, a spotless lamb. He sacrifices this lamb to God, and God is very pleased with Abel's sacrifice. This was normal in the Old Testament to sacrifice animals, especially lambs, to God. But Cain decides to bring some crops, some vegetation, and at that, he doesn't even bring the best that he has. He brings some that's like it's okay. It's kind of in the middle of the crops that he has. He brings it, he sacrifices it to God, and we see that the Lord is more pleased with Abel's sacrifice than Cain's. In fact, God rejects Cain's sacrifice. And it's not so much because of what he brought, it's more about his attitude, the way in which he brought that sacrifice to the Lord. You see, God knew that Abel was bringing his very best because he respected and he worshiped God. He could tell that Cain was just doing it out of obligation. He didn't feel like the Lord deserved his best. And so we see that God gives Cain a chance to redeem himself and bring a better sacrifice, but Cain decides not to. And so instead, he turns jealous of his brother Abel. You see, as we look at the contrast tonight between love and hate, here's the reality. Love exposes hate. Righteousness, which is right standing with God, doing the right thing, that exposes those who are not right with God, who live in sin. Just like the light exposes the dark, love exposes hate. Abel's attitude of righteousness, of doing the right thing in God's eyes, it exposed Cain's sinfulness, and Cain didn't like that. I don't like it either. You don't like it either when your sin is exposed. And so what do? The same thing Cain did. We turn toward the person that's righteous, that's doing the right thing, and we get jealous of them. We turn our hate toward them when really it's only our own fault. It wasn't Abel's fault that Cain jacked up and was rejected by God. It was Cain's fault. But he turned his blame toward Abel, and his jealousy turned to anger. And his anger eventually turned to hatred and then murder. And so is it wrong to be jealous of somebody? Not necessarily. But for Cain and for a lot of us, it escalates and turns into something that could be really, really bad. So again, darkness and light, they cannot coexist. Same with love and hate when it comes to the heart of people. So I mentioned a minute ago that John is writing in a time where there's a lot of false teachers teaching some things that are not true and that are damaging to the church. There's one person in particular that John mentions in the book of 3 John. It's likely that these false teachers once served under John's leadership. And likely John's pursuit of righteousness and doing the right thing and following God with his life exposed some of the sins of these other men, and they decided to leave. And so now they are targeting John. And so when John writes these words, he's writing these things because he's experiencing this. He's experiencing people that he used to be close with. Now they hate him because he's just trying to follow God the best that he can every single day. And so John says to us, after he uses the story of Cain and Abel in verse 13, he says, "Do not be surprised, brothers, that the world hates you. Do not be surprised, brothers." Now, this is the only time in 1 John that John will call his listeners brothers. He wants them to know that, hey, we're family. We're in this together. We're all on the same level here. Brothers, don't be surprised if somebody hates you. Now, here's what I want you to do. In the chat right now, I want you to find the little hand raise emoji, and I want you to raise your hand if you like when people hate you. Do you like to be hated? Do you like when people just don't like you? I don't think anybody really likes that, because I know that we're all designed to be in relationship. We're all designed to be loved, to experience love. That's how God made us. And so I know that there's times when, people may not always agree with you. I know there's people out there that may not like me as much as they like somebody else, and that's okay. But I don't ever want to do something that I know is going to make somebody else hate me. Nobody wants that. But John is saying here, brothers, don't be surprised when the world hates you. Jesus wasn't surprised when people hated him. He understood what he was there to do. He understood his mission, and he knew that it would cause some people to hate him. But he also knew that it would be worth it. See, the world would prefer that Christians were different. Here's the reality. Some of you have experienced this, and I hope you have. When you put your trust in Jesus and you start following Jesus and you start trying to change your life, the reality is your life will change if you meet Jesus. Things that you did before, things that you thought were good, thought were fun, you start to feel convicted about those things. You start to see how those things are damaging to your life, to your relationship with Jesus, to your relationship with other people. People you used to spend time with, things you used to associate with, things you used to consume, whether it's something you physically consume, something you drink or eat, or something you watch or listen to, those things start to show themselves about how bad and how evil they are in your life, and you begin to push those things away. Well, here's the problem. The people you used to associate with that still do those things, they think you're pushing them away. And you might need to be. You might need to push them away, but here's the thing. They're going to look at you and they're not going to like you for that. They're going to be offended by that. Why? Because they don't care about the same things you do. They don't care about following Jesus. And so that's what's happening here with John is the people that used to worship with him, now John is doing something different and they don't like it. Again, a lot of these people, they used to worship a lot of false gods, a lot of evil things, and now that they're following Jesus, they're turning away from those things. And their friends are like, "Why are you pushing us away? Like, when did you become better than me? Why all of a sudden is this not good enough for you anymore? You used to do this all the time and now you don't want to anymore. What's changed?" And John says it's going to feel like the world hates you. And so don't be surprised by that. And so point number one, I really just have 2 points for you tonight. Point number one is this: the mark of the world is hatred. The mark of the world is hatred. If the question tonight is how do we know? How do we know for sure that we are truly following Jesus, that we are going the right direction? How do we know? Well, the mark of the world is hatred. If you're struggling with being jealous with people, angry with people, hating other people because of things that are happening in their life, again, love and hatred, they can't coexist. They cannot exist together. You cannot have both. And John is saying clearly here that you must love one another. And if you don't, you're a hater. And hatred does not translate with having the love of Jesus in your life. So the mark of the world is hatred. And as believers, we should not be surprised when the world hates us. Let me say it this way, and this might be kind of a gut check, but that's okay. It's good for us. Anyone who professes to be a Christian, who claims to be a follower of Jesus, but is warmly embraced by the people of the world, that is to say, you spend a lot of time with worldly people, you do a lot of the things that they do, and they don't really push back on you at all when you talk about Jesus. If you're embraced by people of the world, you may need to re-examine your commitment to Jesus. It's likely that you're confessing to be a Christian. Maybe you go to church, maybe you go to camp, you do all that stuff, but Jesus has not changed you on the inside. So your actions are not being changed. Your heart is not being changed. And so you probably are not really following Jesus. Again, how do we know? What's the measurement? Well, John is telling us right here. If you don't love your neighbor, if you don't love one another, you are not a believer. Plain and simple. There's no gray area there. It's light, it's dark, it's love, or it's hate. So, point number 1, the mark of the world is hatred. So on the other side of that is point number 2. The mark of the church is love. How do you know you're a believer in Jesus? How do you know you're really a part of the big C, the global church? It's love. Look at what John says right here. 1 John 3, verse 14. We know that we passed out of death and into life because we love the brothers. Not because we go to church, not because we dress up, not because we have the whole Bible memorized, but because we love the brothers. Whoever does not love abides in death. Everyone who hates his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him. That's another way of saying that those two things, they can't exist in the same place. Now, here's a question. We're talking about how do we know, right? How do we know for sure? And so if we know that the proof that we are followers of Jesus is that we love one another, what does that even mean? What does it look like to love one another? It'd be like I give you that ruler to go measure something, but I don't tell you how to use it. You don't know how to read it, right? John is going to show us right now, here's how you read the ruler. Here's how you know that you're loving people the right way. 1 John 3:16. If you know the verse John 3:16, that's a big verse, right? That's important. This is written by the same John. So let's see what he says. By this we know love, that he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. This is what love is. This is how we know what love really is, that he laid down his life for us. And so we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. So our bottom line tonight is simply this. Jesus loved by laying down. Jesus loved by laying down. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he told us? No. That he tagged us in an Instagram post? No. That he sent us a Valentine? No. For God so loved the world that he gave. He gave his only son to die for all of us. And so John is going to follow that up here in 1 John 3:16 and say, this is how we know. This is how we know what love is, that he laid down his life for us. And so we should lay down our lives for our brothers. You see, if you go to the doctor, for a checkup, one thing they're going to do is take your vital signs. They're going to run some normal tests to make sure that everything is still functioning properly. Your blood pressure, they want to make sure your heart's beating the right speed. They're going to check your oxygen levels, right? These are all vital signs to make sure that you are still living. There are many vital signs in the book of 1 John. 16 times, John is going to use the phrase, we know, in the book of 1 John. Just like in verse 14 where he says, we know that we've passed out of death and into life. That phrase, we know, it simply means that we can confidently be sure that we know what's going on, that we're in the right place. And so 16 times he's going to give us a vital sign that we can check in our own lives to make sure that our faith is really alive, is functioning the way it's supposed to. And it all boils down to righteousness, meaning doing the right things that God expects us to do, and love. Loving our neighbors as ourselves. And so in verse 16, this is a strong verse. This is challenging, that we should lay down our lives for our neighbors. Now you might be thinking, wow, so I got to go sacrifice myself like Jesus did? Not necessarily. Jesus laid down his life multiple times before he would ever actually lay down his life by going to the cross. There are multiple ways you can lay down your life every single day. See, what it means to love other people, to love your neighbor as yourself, to love people the way that Jesus did means to care about what's good for them over what is good for you. To literally lay down what's good for you, your opinions, what's comfortable for you, what you want, for the sake of what somebody else wants or what somebody else might need. Love is denial of self for somebody else's gain. See, real love is an action. It's not a feeling. If you feel like you love somebody, that's great. That could also be just some bad chicken you ate for lunch. Just a feeling. It means nothing. But real love is an action. We can know that God loved us by what Jesus did for us. You think the things that Jesus went through were good for him? Were best for him? No. Jesus coming to the planet was not the best thing for him to do. God getting off of his throne in heaven and becoming a person and going through everything that you go through, the struggles of life. Life is hard. You know that. It was not in God's best interest to become a man, but he did it for us. He humbled himself, like Paul says in Philippians 4. It was not best for Jesus to walk around and heal people all the time and break the law and get ridiculed and get picked on and be doubted by his own family. It was not what was best for him. It was not best for him to give himself over and to be arrested and to be led away and be tried and be accused of something he didn't even do. It was not best for Jesus to be beaten so badly so many times that he almost died. It was not best for him to be hung on a cross and die from asphyxiation. It was not best for him to be pierced in the side to make sure he was dead. It was not best for him to do any of that. But it's what was best for you. So that's why he did it. It was not easy. You see in the garden the night before he gave his life that he was in turmoil. He said, God, if there's another way I can do this, but if not, then your will be done. Such a perfect picture of love. Doesn't matter what's best for me. Whatever's best for God's people, whatever's best for the will of God, that is what we do. And so love means laying down. And for Jesus, it meant literally laying down his life, laying in the tomb dead for about 36 hours. But then, of course, you know the story. He rises from the dead and defeats sin, death, and hell, and we can live with him forever. But before we get there, we have to live today. We have to live tomorrow. And so the question is, are you living today the way Jesus has called you to live? Do the people around you know without a doubt that, man, this person is a follower of Jesus because of how they treat other people? If they don't, you're not doing it right. Doesn't matter what else you're doing. Doesn't matter how often you're here. Doesn't matter how much you know about the Bible. If you're not loving other people well, I don't care how bad they are to you, how unlovable they are. If you are not loving other people by laying yourself down for them, you're not doing it the right way. John will continue here, and we're almost done. In verse 17, but if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and in truth. What I want to do real quick is read to you those last few verses in the Message version of the Bible. This is just a different way of saying what we just read. It's a different translation. It's a little more modern, but I love the way this reads, and man, this may be that gut check that I was talking about for somebody. 1 John 3, starting in verse 16 in the Message version. This is how we've come to understand and experience love. Christ sacrificed his life for us. This is why we ought to live sacrificially for our fellow believers and not just be out for ourselves. Verse 17. If you see some brother or sister in need, that means somebody you know well. If you see some brother or sister in need and have the means to do something about it, but turn a cold shoulder and do nothing, what happens to God's love? It disappears. And you made it disappear. So if you see somebody in need and you have the means to help them and you just ignore them, John says, what happens to God's love in that moment? Doesn't matter if you just came from church. What happens to God's love? John says it disappears. And guess what? You made it disappear. Students, I don't want to be the reason that anybody around me does not get to experience the love of God because I make it disappear by not doing the right thing, by not loving that person the way that I'm called to love them, by laying down myself to do what is best for that person. It's our obligation to love people. It's our responsibility. It is our privilege. Can God save that person and do something amazing in their life even if you miss your opportunity? Yeah, absolutely he can. But in that moment, I'm not as concerned about that person. I'm concerned about why you decided to ignore what you're called to do. So students, how can we look for ways to love people today? What are some ways in your family? You've been spending a lot of time with your family lately, and you might be tired of them. Guess what? They may be tired of you too, okay? But how can we lay down our lives for our families right now? How can we deny what we want more than anything for what might be good for somebody else? There's a lot of examples. And you're going to get to talk about that in your Zoom groups here in just a little bit. But one more time, before we go, bottom line is this. Jesus loved by laying down. So we are called. We're obligated to do the same for the people around us. And this is the only way we will know. The only way we will really know if we are truly believers or not.
Why aren't you wearing your baseball jersey?
Because y'all don't tell me what's going on ever.
I feel like we've talked about this for weeks, that
Actually,
we were so excited to do this.
I was excited. I almost did, but I wanted to wear since we were talking about love, I wanted to wear my Heart Casey shirt.
Very good.
But Casey Royals.
That makes a lot of sense. Still works.
Yeah.
Thanks for the video, Frank. Thank you for the teaching, Tyler. Hope that it has spoken to you. Hope that the Lord spoke to you through his teaching. And this book, 1 John, is it's so good. And sometimes we really focus more on the Psalms or the gospel accounts, books like Proverbs, and sometimes we have a habit of looking over these letters, but there's such good teaching about who Jesus was and who we are to be as the church. And so that's kind of what you talked about tonight. I have to ask, is Galatians 5:6, is that one of your favorite verses in all of Scripture?
It's good.
You talked about it yesterday or on Sunday with in your message, and you brought it back again tonight.
It's almost like it's important.
And
I don't know.
Can you imagine that it's important to know that our faith works through love, and at the end of the day,
Crazy.
That's what matters. So
Crazy.
That's good. That's
I think for me,
really
when looking at 1 John, one of my favorite things is looking at these different letters. Whenever you get a letter, let's say your grandma sends you a letter for your birthday. Or maybe you send a letter to your grandma. How about that? You're going to write based on what's going on in your life at that time. And so I love seeing how the letters are different based on what was going on in that time. And so we talked about tonight that the people that are reading this, they're having to discern between a lot of false teachers about what is true and what is not. And so I'm thankful for John, who we know was Jesus' best friend. And if anybody knows what really matters and what the proper measuring tool is of our true belief in Jesus, he would know. And so knowing that, I think, makes it even more powerful and more, at least for me, more confident in knowing that what he's saying is true.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. So Jesus loved by laying down. Appreciate tonight that Tyler talked about the love of the Lord and how that is kind of opposite of how the world operates and how we should be as Christians. And next week, Sarah is going to be talking to us about the love of God and how God himself is love personified. So you will definitely want to make sure that you are back here next week for that. I'm really excited about that teaching.
I hope you wear something different.
Didn't like the Red Sox stuff, huh? Well, I bet she's going to wear it again next week. We'll see.
At least it's not the Dodgers or the Astros.
That's true.
Yep.
Yankees. Twins.
I'd rather her wear the Yankees.
Cardinals. Abercrombie Twins, if you're on here.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Cut.
Yeah. No, I don't like the Cardinals. They're fine. Anyway, I'm just trying to see
They
if
haven't done anything in a long time.
I was going to say, I'm just trying to see if those boys are on here tonight. So hopefully you guys are watching.
Are they still even a team?
The Cardinals?
Yeah.
nobody's a team right now, I guess.
That's true. Oh,
But speaking of baseball stuff, we did some baseball stuff earlier, and we have a prize to give
got a
out.
winner?
Yeah, we absolutely do. So first thing is we want to give away our Sonic and Swag. And so if you were able to guess correctly the most top plays or not top plays, and really those are 50-50 answers, so we could have some ties here.
What about the socially distant one? Is that just everyone gets that, or
Yeah, that's your free space.
free space?
So
That's
make you feel good about it. We should social distance, but we should also
Yes.
make plays. So it's hard to know. But anyway, if you were the winner of that game, your name is being dropped in the chat right now, and you are the winner. So
Way to go.
congratulations, you. Yeah, we're very excited. Sonic and Swag. I was able to drop off some Sonic and Swag to Nick last week. So
Nick
congratulations
picked the
again,
Just
Nick.
in Case T-shirt, and I believe Emma Bolson the week before picked this guy, if I remember right. She got the "Wash Your Hands, You Sinners,"
Yep.
James 4:8. So Emma went with a little more biblical T-shirt, and Nick just with the practical. So both are good.
We respect it.
Yep.
Yep. So thanks for playing in our game. Next thing we want to do is let you know who won the World Series trophy. And so whether your toppings were creative or super nasty, your name is being dropped in the chat.
So
right?
here's my question.
Oh, wait.
Is it just anything goes? Like most creative? Because you could be like, motor oil.
Seems late to be doing these rules, but
I'm just-
I guess
that's just what I
so.
was
Yeah,
thinking.
like if you put, you
just
wanted
gotta
to
know.
top your hot dog with chicken tarragon, like you can do whatever you want to do.
Tarragon. So I hang on. Let me put something in the chat real quick, and we'll see if am I up for the prize?
Sure.
Is it possible that I could win it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's okay. So here we go. I'm putting my topping in the chat right now.
Okay.
There it goes. Okay. Whoever's picking the winner, you should pick me.
That's pretty gross, if you ask me.
Don't knock
So,
it till you try it.
Okay, well, we'll see. The winner is being posted now. Congratulations, you. 1985 replica World Series trophy.
It's fake.
I hope you're not a Cardinals fan because
Yeah.
it's also really small. It's about the size of this hand sanitizer. So I don't know what replica
That's life
really
size though.
means.
They put
Yeah,
the camera really close,
it's true.
and so the big one's the real one's really not that big.
Yeah, especially right now. So.
True.
Finally, our raffle winner. We need to spin the wheel. Off
it.
camera or on camera? What do you guys think? Do you guys think we're going to spin it off camera or on camera? Enter in the chat if you think we're going to spin the wheel on camera or off camera. We're going to tell you in just a second which one we're doing. So yeah, keep the roller going. Very good. Well, if you were going to win Uber Eats, what would you...
Popeyes.
Here we go. Okay. It's on camera for those of you that guessed correctly. No prize. All right, spin the wheel. Well, sorry about that, whoever won.
Did we not like the answer that it gave? Give us some
I'm not a Fazoli's guy, personally.
I like Fazoli's.
Oh, it's
Fazoli's.
Fazoli's again. Okay, well, it's
It's
God's
meant to
will. Okay, no, it's Fazoli's. They get Fazoli's. Turn it off because they get Fazoli's that want to be Italian food. So. Sorry,
Hater.
just kidding. Breadsticks are good,
You're a hater.
so yeah, we don't want that.
Love is not in you.
So congratulations to the raffle winner. Your name is being dropped into the chat right now.
Congratulations.
Great job, you.
You're gonna eat so many breadsticks.
Very excited for you. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Just get all breadsticks. It'll
All
be
breadsticks.
delicious. So,
Carve it up.
anyway, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. As usual, we are going to head into our Zoom meetings now. We are excited to see you over there. We'll play a game, and then we'll break off into smaller groups. This is going to be a great time, so please don't leave. Click the Zoom link and come hang out with us because it's pretty awesome. We want you to have a voice as well. So until then, we will see you next week.